They said the girl in the black shawl was broken before she ever crossed the county line. And in Mercy Ridge, that was enough to make people stare harder than they prayed. Because sorrow and a pretty face unsettled folks more than a gun at noon. When the stagecoach stopped in a cough of red dust, and she stepped down with a carpetbag in one hand and a silence, heavy as winter in the other. Every whisper on the boardwalk bent toward her. They noticed the pale scar along her jaw, the tiredness under her eyes, the way she stood like a woman holding herself upright through force alone. And then old Mrs. Pike, who called cruelty honesty when it suited her, said it plain enough for half the street to hear, "She's too damaged to last a season here." The words hit the stranger clean, but she only bent for her fallen bag. And that was when Eli Mercer came out of Dalton's store, saw a whole town watching one woman struggle by herself, and stopped dead in the dust, because some moments do not ask a man who he has been. They ask him who he is. Everyone expected the rancher to keep walking. Eli Mercer was not known for softness. He was broad-shouldered, sunburned, stubborn as dry ground, a man who spoke little and carried old grief like a pocket knife. Always there, always folded shut, but he crossed the street, lifted the carpetbag before the stranger could reach it. And when his rough hand brushed hers, he did it with impossible care, like she was made of something weather and wickedness had no right to touch. The whole town fell quiet at that, because he touched her hand like it was something sacred. And Mercy Ridge did not know what to do with tenderness when it came from a man it trusted to be hard. By sundown, the stranger had a name, Clara Voss. By morning, she had 10 rumors tied to it. Some said she had run from a husband. Some said she had buried one. Some said trouble followed her like dust follows wagons. But Clara rented a room above the mercantile, found sewing work, spoke to no one, unless necessary. And every night, she sat at the window looking west at the hills, as if she feared what might come over them. And what might not. There are women who enter a town and are welcomed like spring rain, and women who arrive like a cracked bell, making everyone hear what they would rather ignore. Clara was the second kind. The men watched too long. The women watched too carefully. Boys mocked the way sudden voices made her tense. And the preacher's wife offered kindness with cold hands and colder eyes. But Eli kept appearing where he had no business being. Near the well at dawn, outside the smithy, when she bought needles. Under the boarding-house steps with flour Mrs. Holloway had not asked for but clearly needed. He never cornered her, never asked questions she did not offer to answer. He only made it harder for Mercy Ridge to pretend she was untouchable. And when a drunken cowhand laughed that damaged goods ought to be left where they break, Eli turned with such quiet force that even the horses seemed to feel it. "Choose your next words with care," he said, low enough to shame the man. And Clara looked at him then with something close to disbelief, not gratitude, not yet, but the stunned recognition of a woman remembering that strength did not always come wearing cruelty. Weeks passed, and Clara began helping Doc Bennett in the clinic, rolling bandages, washing cups, calming fevered children with hands steadier than the doctor's own. Mothers who distrusted her still brought their babies back because Clara stayed gentle in the middle of panic, because she sang in a worn, low voice while measuring medicine, because she remembered which child feared the spoon and which one needed a story first. Slowly, the town's certainty about her began to fray, but gossip only changed its shape. Now they said women with shadows that deep did not help the sick out of kindness. They said suffering liked familiar company, and still Clara endured it with the patience of someone who had survived worse than whispers. Until one hard afternoon, her past rode straight into Mercy Ridge in a gray coat and a polished badge. He called himself Marshall Boone Kessler, and the moment Clara saw him, every bit of color left her face. He smiled like a man presenting safety, said he had come to escort his troubled wife home, said she was fragile, confused, not fit to be alone. And suddenly the whole town leaned forward, eager to see whether the stranger they had judged would finally prove them right. Boone spoke smoothly, the way dangerous men often do, every word arranged to make control sound like concern. He told them Clara was unwell, said grief had made her unreliable, said decent people should not encourage a woman already damaged by her own mind. Eli arrived from the south pasture in time to hear that last word. And when he asked the only thing that mattered, "Does the lady wish to go?" Boone laughed and answered for her, "Damaged women seldom know what is good for them." Clara stood rigid beneath the clinic awning, white but unbending. Then she lifted her head and said to the watching town, "He does not want me safe, he wants me silent." The street went so quiet even the wind seemed to wait. There was no dramatic collapse after that, no trembling plea. Only Clara speaking with the flat, exhausted honesty of someone done carrying another man's lies. She told them Boone had courted her sister and abandoned her, that her father challenged him and died days later from a bullet no witness could tie to his hand, that Boone married Clara for property and respectability, then spent years tightening fear around her life with threats, locked doors, and the steady promise that no one would believe a woman already marked by loss. When she discovered papers proving he had stolen land from widows and buried complaints behind his badge, she ran with them, sewn into the lining of her shawl. And suddenly Mercy Ridge saw that she had not come carrying shame, she had come carrying evidence. Doc Bennett took the papers, then passed them to Judge Pell, whose eyesight was poor but whose temper for corruption was legendary. Names were read, dates checked, seals turned to the sun, and Boone's easy smile began to split at the edges. Men who had nodded along with him a moment earlier took one step back and then another, because shame frightens cowards only after it changes sides. Boone called Clara a liar, called her hysterical, called her broken, but the town had already heard too much truth in her voice to fit her neatly back into the box they had built for her. Then cornered pride did what cornered pride always threatens to do. Boone went for his gun. The first shot shattered the clinic sign. Women screamed, horses reared, and Eli moved before anyone else had fully understood what was happening. He shoved Clara behind the hitch rail as Boone swung toward her again, because even exposed, even losing, he still aimed for the voice that had defied him. Eli drew and fired once. Boone staggered into the dust and stayed there. The sound rolled off the storefronts and vanished into the hills. And for one long second, Clara stood gripping the rail with both hands, not because danger remained, but because freedom, when it comes after years of fear, can feel almost as frightening as the cage. By evening, Mercy Ridge had already begun rewriting itself. Now folks said they had suspected Boone all along, said Clara had seemed brave from the start, said Eli Mercer had only done what any decent man would have done, but Clara knew the taste of convenient kindness, and it did not sweeten much with age. She might have left then, and more than one person expected her to, yet the next morning she was back in the clinic, folding bandages. Then at the schoolhouse mending curtains. Then on the boardwalk, buying rosemary cuttings because her mother once said hardy things belonged near houses of sorrow. Staying was not forgiveness, it was choice, and choice was something Boone had tried to starve out of her. The town approached her awkwardly after that. With pies, with apologies, with excuses dressed as regret, Clara accepted some and refused others, while Eli, perhaps wiser than most men, gave her room instead of claims. He did not act like saving her life earned him a place in it. He only nodded when they crossed paths, asked after the clinic, fixed the gate outside without being asked, and let trust grow the way strong things do in the West. Slow, practical, without fuss, and because he demanded nothing. She began to believe what his silence had been telling her from the first day, that he saw the wound, yes, but he did not mistake it for the whole woman. Winter settled over Mercy Ridge with hard skies and a mean wind, and Clara healed the way land heals after fire. Not all at once, not cleanly, but surely. She still startled at slammed doors, still had nights where sleep came like a fight, but she laughed now too, a rusty sound at first, then warmer. She taught 2 ranch girls their letters in the evenings, argued prices with Dalton until the man admitted she kept better accounts than he did, and sat near the back of church, no longer hiding, simply present, which in some lives is the bravest thing a person can be. One frozen afternoon she rode out to Mercer Ranch with medicine for a stable boy and found Eli repairing a broken gate with hands gone red from the cold. When she passed him the tin, their fingers brushed again, this time by choice. And still, he handled that contact with the same careful reverence he had shown on the first day. As if trust freely offered was rarer than silver, the town watched their quiet understanding deepen through winter and into spring. Until one cold evening, Eli asked whether she might ride beyond the cottonwoods with him on Sunday. His voice rough with the effort of saying something that mattered. Clara studied him. The stern rancher everyone once thought had lost his wits over a damaged woman. And a small, real smile touched her mouth. "I might," she said, "if you promise not to treat me like glass." Eli answered, "Never glass," and when he held out his hand in the dying light, she took it before the whole town, before the wind, before every whisper that had tried to bury her, because some scars do not disappear, they become part of the map. And some hands do not claim what they hold, they simply remind the broken places that they were never beyond the reach of reverence.